Okay. Yeah, the subscriptions are different days or whatever we're doing here. So
You've already got it.
I paid for that last year. I think.
Did you get that 199 thing?
All right, good evening. We are going to be in 1 Corinthians chapter 11. You can turn your Bibles over there. We've missed several classes this quarter, which has thrown us off a bit. We were going to study this chapter on Sunday, but we weren't here Sunday morning. So we're going to combine a few chapters, really to get us back on track with the schedule. Just to let everyone know that the current plan is on Sunday we're going to do two classes. We're going to do, on Sunday we're going to combine two of the classes and do all of chapter 12. And then later down the line we're going to combine another two classes and do all of chapter 14 as one class. So that's how we're going to squish us together and get us back on schedule. Because as soon as we finish this class, we've got the gospel meeting the very next week. So it's a little harder to just shift things. Can someone close the door over there? Thank you. So tonight we are going to do what I think is probably the most studied chapter in all of 1 Corinthians. Most studied set of verses in all of 1 Corinthians. Really, a lot of times when we're studying 1 Corinthians, I know a lot of times I'll say, we don't study this particular chapter very much. We should probably study this one more. This one, we study a lot. But I think the downside to that is when you have a text that you study so often, like this one, particularly this is the one we read at the Lord's table so often, when you have a text that you're so familiar with, a lot of times we don't see it in context as well. We're used to just reading it up here when we're taking the Lord's Supper, and so we know those set of verses, but to actually see how it fits into the rest of the book, that's where maybe we're lacking. And I think when we see that, it actually helps us understand it a lot better. So that's my hope for tonight, is that we'll see it in the context that it was written and gain a lot more from it, and it will enrich both our partaking of the Lord's Supper and our understanding of all of 1 Corinthians. So let's get started with a prayer. Holy Lord God, gracious and loving, thank you so much for your Son. Thank you for the death that he died. Thank you for the forgiveness, the redemption from sin that we have because of that death. And thank you for giving us a memorial meal that we can take to remember that death. Lord, help this study to help us to better understand both your sacrifice and this memorial meal that we take. Help us to understand that and help us to grow as a church and be the kind of church that you would have us to be. Please help us in this study. Amen. All right, so we are going to be starting in verse 17. 1 Corinthians 11, verse 17. But in the following instructions, I do not commend you, because when you come together, it is not for the better, but for the worse. For in the first place, when you come together as a church, I hear that there are divisions among you. And I believe it in part, for there must be factions among you in order that those who are genuine among you may be recognized. When you come together, it is not the Lord's Supper that you eat. For in eating, each one goes ahead with his own meal. One goes hungry, another gets drunk. What? Do you not have houses to eat and drink in? Or do you despise the church of God and humiliate those who have nothing? What shall I say to you? Shall I commend you in this? No, I will not. Paul is not happy. This may be his most scathing rebuke in all the book, although he has several other really scathing rebukes in this book. But he really comes down on them hard here. And we're going to see by the end of it, he's telling them God is judging them for this. I mean, he's not okay with any of this. So we're going to see why this is just so terrible what they're doing. And we're going to see how we can fall into some of the same things. Hopefully, I don't think we fall into quite as extreme as they're committing here, but there may be, I think there's still things we can learn from it. All right, so let's start writing stuff on the board here. So first of all, he says, in the following instructions, I do not commend you. Does that sound familiar to any other part in the book from what we studied in the past? Do you remember any similar phrases to that?
Well, the beginning of the chapter, it says, I commend you.
Yes, that's what's so interesting. In verse 2 of this chapter, it says, now I commend you because you remember me in everything and I maintain your traditions even as I deliver them to you. So that was when he was talking about the roles of men and women, the head covering and all that. And he says, I commend you. You're doing well with this. Now he says, but now in this other area, I don't commend you because you're not doing well. So this is the area where they're really, really failing. So we're going to I'll start by writing, this is a big problem. That's the way he introduces it. And you'll notice he repeats it in that last verse that I read in verse 22. He says, shall I commend you in this? No, I will not. So he hits it twice. He opens it up with it, he closes it with it. Just let them know this is terrible. So he says, when they come together, it's not for the better, but for the worse. What do you think that means?
Might as well not do it. It's worse when you do it.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yes, that when we come together, it should be for the better. We should actually be helping each other, worshiping God, pleasing God and everything, but it seems like it's gotten so bad that when you come together, it's actually making things worse. Maybe making your relationship with God worse, making a relationship with each other worse. It's that bad. So, all right. So, for worse, not better. Now, in verse 18, he tells us succinctly what the actual problem is. And what is the problem according to verse 18?
Division.
Divisions. That's it. Problem is divisions. Now you remember he's already talked about that in this book. The very first chapter was about the problem of divisions in the church. But now we're seeing specifically where some of those divisions are happening. And a lot of these divisions are happening during the Lord's Supper. And he's going to get very specific in here and explain exactly what that looks like. And by the end of it, he's going to give them a very specific solution of here's how to solve this problem. So, he says that this is happening in verse 18. It says, when you come together as a church. What do you think from that phrase? What does that mean?
The assembly.
Yes. This is the whole church gathered together. So this is not just a few people or something. This is their worship service. That's the setting of this. So in their worship service, when they're gathered together as a church, now does anyone know when we use that word church, what is the actual definition of that word? If we were going to look at the Greek word or something, anybody?
It means called out.
The called out, yes. What other ways do we use to describe that?
Assembly.
Assembly, yes. Yeah, so it's this gathering of people.
Yeah, a lot of people get confused and say church is the building. No, the church is us.
That's
people
it.
in the building.
Yes.
The building's just a building where we meet. We're the church.
That's it. And that's so important. And really important for a lot of things in this chapter. This section is about when they're gathered together as a church. Church meaning not building, but the people. All right, so when they're gathered as this gathering, they're not very gathered. They're very divided. Jen, were you starting to
I was just going to say that the assembly is how a lot of times the people of Israel were referred to back in the Old Testament. The whole assembly of the people so it's kind of a traditional way of looking at it if you want to see it.
That's a good point. Yeah, there's a lot of connection there. Yeah. Okay. Now he says at the end of verse 18, and I believe it in part. So he's saying, I hear there are divisions, but well, they could be wrong. Maybe the people who told me there are divisions, maybe they don't know what they're talking about. But then he says, actually, I'm pretty sure they do know what they're talking about. I'm pretty sure there actually are some divisions here. And he explains to us why he's so sure of that. And it's in verse 19. He says, "For there must be factions among you, in order that those who are genuine among you may be recognized." That is a very strange sentence there, confusing sentence there.
Yes.
So what do you think it means? Any ideas?
I mean, the first part is kind of clear, that there must be, cliques or split off groups within your assembly. But then that second part is a little confusing. Who are the genuine, and how are they recognized because there are factions? It's not the cause and effect. Doesn't really follow.
It is very strange. Yes, I agree. So,
Can you read your version of that again?
yes. Yeah, and then maybe you can read me yours, because if it's different, I'd like to hear, maybe it'll help us. Mine says in verse 19, "For there must be factions among you, in order that those who are genuine among you may be recognized." Is that really different?
So mine says, "For there must be also heresies among you, that they which are approved may be made manifest among you."
Okay, so instead of divisions, heresies, or instead of factions, it's heresies. Okay, interesting.
Groups of belief.
Yeah.
The New King James words it factions among you, but then also says that those who are approved may be recognized among you.
Approved. Okay,
And-
so rather than genuine, we've got approved.
And talks about them being recognized among them. So I wonder if he's saying that he hears that there's divisions among them. But I'm wondering if that means he also hears about the people that are approved of among them as well.
Yes, I think I see what you're saying. Yeah, so I think there's a couple different things that this verse could mean. I don't know what it is, so I'll write up here our different possibilities. One would be that well, I don't know how to write it. Let me just say it, and I can think of how to write it. Okay, one would be that as we've got these different cliques, these different divisions, it starts to show who's actually genuine. If we went with this translation of genuine, that you can start to see, okay, when the church starts splitting, it becomes much more obvious who's in it for real and who's basically just playing church. And I think that is how that often works. When churches go through problems, then you have some people who you thought were so strong, and you find out they're not really acting like Christian at all, and then other people who are weathering the storm. So that might be what he's going for. The other option, and I think this might go better with your translation, Kenny, was with the approval. Is this actually an approval from God, or does this mean like approval from other people? Maybe would be the other option. That some people are being more approved by it than others.
I did a little research because it's weird for one word to be translated so differently, and so
Yes.
I looked at sort of the Greek word in isolation and then what translators and scholars kind of say about it, and it is a word that's typically used for like, tried and found truthful.
Okay.
Right? And so like honest and genuine and believable, trustworthy kind of sense.
Yes.
Rather than so approved, meaning like we tried you out and you passed the test, sort of.
Yes.
Okay. And so that's the connection between genuine and approved here. Is like you proved yourself genuine.
Okay. Yeah. That's helpful. All right.
Even if it's the word genuine, I think in my mind I was just thinking if he heard of the bad, maybe he heard of some of the good as well.
That makes
So
sense.
there's a
Yeah.
distinction
Yeah. Yeah. That's good.
Sometimes factions have to arise in order to show the difference. There has to be a contrast between the different factions from different divisions. I mean, there was a big contrast. Some were getting drunk, and some didn't even have anything to partake of the Lord's Supper with. Okay, so that's a big contrast.
Yeah.
Okay, and the ones who were eating like they were having a meal and getting drunk and all that were just treating it like they're playing church. They were keeping house. and not taking it serious, okay?
Yes.
And Bob's gonna get into, he's gonna get into the seriousness of it. But,
Yeah.
but he says they thought they were coming together to take Lord's Supper. No, you're not doing it. You're not taking Lord's Supper. You think you were, but by doing it wrong, you're not.
Yes.
It's worse. It's worse, not better.
Yes, yeah, all right, good points. So then the next verse says, when you come together, it is not the Lord's Supper that you eat. Okay, so not the Lord's Supper. Now, that's a pretty strong statement because they would probably say, well, yeah, that's what we're there to do. We're there to eat the Lord's Supper. But he's saying it's so twisted, Paul can't even call this the Lord's Supper anymore, what they're doing at this point. And maybe the point, contrasted with the next verse, is here he's trying to show them it's the Lord's Supper that they should be taking, but instead they're taking their supper.
Their own meal.
Yes. All right, so let's hit the next verse. Verse 21. For in eating, each one goes ahead with his own meal. One goes hungry and another gets drunk. So rather than the Lord's Supper, it's their own.
This says supper here in the version of New King James.
Oh, okay, their own supper?
Their own supper instead of Lord's Supper.
Okay.
I like that. Parallel.
So we've got each one goes ahead with own supper.
Sounds like a common meal.
Yeah.
Yes, it really does. And especially as we keep reading through here, it definitely sounds like that.
Well, not only that, like if only it were a common meal, as in common as in shared.
Right.
But it's like they all packed a lunch if they had it.
Yes.
And they all brought like a little brown bag, like, oh, it's Lord's Supper time, gotta get up my, sub to eat. And,
Yes.
it's bizarre to even imagine, given our, understanding of communion. Just for people
Yes.
just, okay, I've packed a picnic, let's go.
It does seem very bizarre. And maybe the reason it seems so bizarre is because we have this text, and so we've learned
Not
not to go that
that.
direction with it. Yes. But the two things I think we've got in here that are key, we've got the own, right, contrasted with the Lord's, and then we've also got the goes ahead.
Yeah.
He's going to hit on that they're not waiting for each other.
Yeah.
You've got some people eating while the other people haven't shown up yet or haven't gotten their food out or whatever it is.
You can draw emphasis on that one goes hungry.
Yes.
When you got one going hungry, they're not partaking with you.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing it, but they're not.
Yes.
And love was one of the issues that he talked about. And this will show the lack of love between the congregation, between the members.
Your brother's hungry.
Yes.
That's not right.
Yeah, so you've got one person who's hungry, one person who's drunk. Two completely different extremes. Both of those are bad. They're getting drunk at the Lord's Supper, that's bad. If there are some people who are going hungry, not getting anything, then that's also bad.
It's also not consistent. Yeah, it's all over the place.
Yes.
And that's not, everybody's not doing the same thing.
Yes. And
No unity.
it's the division, that's it.
There's where unity is done.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's probably different week to week on who's doing what.
Yes. Well, and he spells out in the next verse who it is that's hungry and who it is that's drunk. He says in verse 22, what, do you not have houses to eat and drink in, or do you despise the church of God and humiliate those who have nothing? So, let me come back to the houses part, but let me go ahead and write down this. Despise the church of God and humiliate those who have nothing. Despise church, humiliate those with nothing. What do you think he means by that phrase, humiliate those who have nothing?
To show your plenty and show how much they lack. Show the big difference between you.
Yes!
It's humiliating.
I think it shows this problem, this division, Now we're finding out this division has something to do with rich and poor. Yes, this class division. You've got some people who have lots of money and they're coming in with a bunch of food and having a feast there and getting drunk. And you've got some people who are so poor they can't bring any food, and so they show up and they're starving. And this is supposed to be a church taking the Lord's Supper. Yes.
It's flabbergasting that it manifests in the Lord's Supper. But it shouldn't even be a problem outside of that. Like,
exactly right.
they're supposed to share all things in common, whether it's in some feast they're holding or not.
Right.
They should be aware of those members of their church who are hungry, and that shouldn't be a problem. That they are responsible for those needy brethren. That's like one of the main first things the church ever did for each other was take care of each other's needs. And the fact that there's that hungry guy over there. Anyway, pass the turkey or whatever they're eating for their Lord's Supper, and it's a disgusting perversion, especially the ceremony. But then even of just being at church, it's not right.
Yeah, it does feel like they failed at Christianity 101.
Yeah.
And therefore, it's gotten so bad that it's even perverting the Lord's Supper itself. It's all this division.
Yeah.
Let's think about the center verse that I skipped there. That do not have houses to eat and drink in. Eat in houses. What do you think? Why do you think he brings that up? What's the point of that little phrase in there?
Feast anywhere.
Well, yeah, but the meal that the wealthy were eating was like a regular meal they ordinarily would have at home. They're having breakfast there at church.
Yeah.
They're having a coffee and donuts there instead of at home.
That's something they should be doing at home, not for the
And
Lord's
also
Supper.
in Acts chapter 2, it talks about the difference between having their meals from house to house and then breaking of bread. And so there's a contrast. There's a difference between, even the first church recognized there's a difference between a regular meal and the Lord's Supper, even the first century.
I would also say you can't take the Lord's Supper outside of the church. It's special to this particular circumstance.
It's when you gather as
You
as
can
an
have
assembly.
you can have a feast at anybody's house, but when you're in the Lord's assembly, you get this special opportunity, and you're treating it like it's normal. You're treating it like it's regular. You're profaning it by not recognizing its significance.
Yes.
And so you might as well just go eat lunch at your house and not even try and do it like this, because it's the same as those regular profane meals.
Yes.
You're not keeping it holy, basically.
Yeah, great points. And with this, we need to make sure, again, they were thinking in terms of this is not about the church building, this is about the church as the assembly. Because again, when he's despising the church, he doesn't mean despising the building, he means despising the assembly, the people. And he's actually explaining how they're despising the assembly. So they despise the people by humiliating the people who have nothing. And so what they should be doing is, if they just ate at home, if they want to have their feast, they eat their feast at home, and then when they get together, they take the Lord's Supper, and it's not going to be humiliating these people. That way, it's not about putting down those other people. It's together, they're all honoring the
Well, it
Lord.
says something about why have you despised the church of God? That means you hold it in low regard. You realize that the church of God is the body of Christ.
Yes.
You didn't figure that out. You're ignoring that. You're holding it in low regard. You're not thinking very highly of it. You should.
Yeah.
The opposite is, you think very highly of the church, and because of that, you treat it special. And what you do in the assembly is special. It's not just a getting together for public or anything. But another word, despise, is found when Nathan confronted David about his sin against Bathsheba. The word they said, why have you despised the commandment of the Lord? So when David sinned, he committed covetousness, adultery, and murder. And he thought, well, I can get away with it. Well, the commands of the Lord have to be held in high regard, not low regard. And same with the command or the church of the Lord, church of God, is something never to be despised, never to think low.
Yes.
I
Jen?
think that too, the church here is not an it, as you said. What they're despising are their brothers and sisters.
That's it.
They're looking down on the people who they're supposed to be close with, who are supposed to be like their family. And they're feeling contempt for them and rejecting them and holding them as separate and not including them in just a basic meal. You know, it's a level of poor treatment that we wouldn't really even treat strangers with. You know, it's probably because of these factions, whatever disagreement, whatever sort of bad blood there was between these folks who were trying to work together and failing. That feeling of despising them, I think, is causing these problems. But
And I wonder if how much of this was even deliberate. If a lot of this was just, you know, I've got a lot of money, I've got a lot of food, I like to have a feast, I'm going to bring my food, and I'm eating here, and I didn't even notice that this guy doesn't have anything, I'm not even paying any attention to that person. Because I think a lot of times that is how divisions can happen. So, before we go on, we're about to hit the next paragraph, but I want to say, this feels like it's just a world apart from us. But even if we don't do these specific things, I think we can fall into these same kinds of sins, where you can have divisions in a church, you can have, when we start thinking selfishly, we start thinking more about myself and my little clique instead of thinking about the body as a whole and not thinking so much about how my actions are affecting people around me. I think that's what this is, and he's going to try to show us how the Lord's Supper is the very opposite of that. When we come to worship, it is about each other. It's got to be focused on how am I helping the whole group. Neil?
The next chapter is, the main theme is diversity.
Yes.
This is diversity gone wrong, it's division.
Great point. Yes, the two chapters really do fit right together with that. Yeah. All right. Well, let's hit the next section, and we'll talk about what the solution is here. Verse 23. For I received from the Lord what I also delivered to you, that the Lord Jesus, on the night when he was betrayed, took bread, and when he had given thanks, he broke it and said, "This is my body, which is for you. Do this in remembrance of me." In the same way also he took the cup after supper, saying, "This cup is the new covenant in my blood. Do this as often as you drink it in remembrance of me. For as often as you eat this bread and drink the cup, you proclaim the Lord's death until he comes." All right, so the solution is, he says, here's how Jesus set it up.
One thing about that though, Philip.
Yes, yeah.
Is that it says, "For I received from the Lord what I also delivered," past tense, to you.
Yeah.
So they're not eating this big old meal together or not together because they didn't know what the Lord's Supper was about. It's devolved into that somehow.
So they've been taught.
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I delivered this to you.
That's a really good point. Yes, they should have known. They had this information. Yeah, that's a very good point. And it's neat the way Paul describes that, how he received it from the Lord, he gave it to them, and then they're supposed to be using it to actually do this in the right kind of way. And they're missing it. So I think there's a huge lesson for us on this, that the way Paul solves this chaotic problem is just saying, let's go back to what Jesus said. And I think that is the solution to so many problems in worship. That we can see, all right, this isn't right, this attitude's wrong, this person isn't treating so-and-so right, all those kinds of things. How do we fix it? All right, we just go back to, all right, how did Jesus set this up? What are his guidelines for what we should be? Okay, so he describes, here's the way I want to do this. We don't have a lot of time. Let's just do this briefly. This is the section we've actually studied a lot, so I'll hit this one quickly, even though we could easily spend the whole class on just the 3 verses here. What do we learn about the Lord's Supper from these verses? Let's just just name off a few things and let's write them on the board. What can we learn about the Lord's Supper from this little section?
New covenant.
New covenant.
about our wants and needs.
For remembrance.
Remembrance. Okay. Yes.
I would say that you do it often,
Often. Okay.
and then also every time you do it, it says you proclaim the Lord's death till he comes.
Yes.
Every time.
Yeah, good point. Oh yeah, and then the phrase you said, the till he comes. It seems like there's also just looking forward to his return.
Of course, we get the elements.
Elements, yes. Bread and cup.
It's a community event,
Mm-hmm.
not a solo event.
Yes. All right. Okay, yeah, lots of things there. How would these things help fix these things, do you think?
For one, it's the same bread, same cup. It's not whatever you brought or nothing.
Yes. good
Everyone gets
point.
some. You know?
Yes, we're all sharing that same meal. Yep. Great point. Keenan.
He's presented in an ordered way, where he blessed it, he gave thanks, and then he broke the bread, and then he passed the cup. So we've sort of adopted that as the sequence we do it as well. But it's
Yeah.
not just like, you're not dunking, the two together in some creative combo or something.
Yeah, that's good. It's not chaos. Yeah. All right. What else? I think about the remembrance of Jesus. I feel like with all this chaos, how much was actually about Jesus at that point?
Not very good.
But the focus is actually on Christ here.
One version uses the word which is broken for you, and that's not in some other versions.
Yeah.
And those of us who grew up in the church kind of have a problem with that because the Passover lamb did not have any broken bones, and Jesus was our Passover lamb, and he didn't break his bones. And so I think the word broken should, obviously, I think is incorrect. It was his body that was given for us. He said, well, his body was broken because it was pierced. But it wasn't. It was pierced. It was cut. It was abused, but it wasn't broken. You could say you broke the skin. Yeah, that's true, but that's not really what happened. He didn't. He was just tortured.
Yeah. Yeah, all right, well, good points. So let's get to the rest of the section, the rest of the chapter now, because there are still some challenging parts ahead. Now he's going to give them the application. He's told them the problem, he's told them the solution, but now he's giving them the specific application for here's what you need to change now. Verse 27, whoever therefore eats the bread or drinks the cup of the Lord in an unworthy manner will be guilty concerning the body and the blood of the Lord. Let a person examine himself then, and so eat the bread and drink the cup. For if anyone eats and drinks without discerning the body, he eats and drinks judgment on himself. That is why many of you are weak and ill, and some have died. But if we judged ourselves truly, we would not be judged. But when we are judged by the Lord, we are disciplined, so that we may not be condemned along with the world. Okay, so here's the application he's giving us. He's giving the Corinthians. He says, therefore, because of what Jesus revealed, therefore, if anyone eats the bread or drinks the cup in an unworthy manner, all right, eat unworthy manner, we will be guilty of the, how does he say, body and blood? Body, what?
Body and blood of the Lord.
Body and blood of the Lord. That is very serious, and I think it's meant to be very serious. He's really trying to get our attention here. I think what he's saying there is, if you eat it the wrong way, you're guilty of Jesus' death. Jesus' death was meant to save us. This is a celebration of that sacrifice for us. But if we do it the wrong way, we're committing the act. That's really scary. Now, in this context, when he says eat in an unworthy manner, what do you think he means by that?
The way they actually do it.
Yeah, it's exactly this. He's saying if you do this that you're doing, then you're guilty of Jesus' death. I hope that was really alarming for them. I hope that really got their attention. I think Paul was really trying
I
to.
think he explains that the worthy manner is discerning the body when you eat the bread, discerning the blood when you drink the cup. That's just pretty obvious.
Well, maybe. Let's look at this. He says, verse 28, let a person examine himself and so eat of the bread and drink of the cup. For if anyone eats and drinks without discerning the body, eats and drinks judgment on himself. So he says what they need to do. All right, solution. What they should do, instead of eating in an unworthy manner, they need to examine themselves. And then they need to discern the body.
Doesn't the word examine themselves, and you're asking yourself, why am I eating this? Am I discerning the body? Am I discerning the blood? That's the examination of yourself, not whether or not you're worthy or not.
So examining themselves, are they doing it in a worthy manner or not? And then discerning the body. The interesting thing is he doesn't say discern the body and the blood. It could be that he's just, using fewer words. Or it could be that when he says discerning the body, he's trying to make them think a little bit bigger than just think about the bread that you're eating right now. Because the body also represents us as his body, as Jesus' body. And why I say that is Paul uses it that way. If you look just in the previous chapter, in chapter 10, when he's talking about the Lord's Supper, notice what he says. Chapter 10, verse 17, he says, because there is one bread, we who are many are one body, for we all partake of the one bread. Same wording. As he's talking about the Lord's Supper there, when he talks about the body, he wants them to think about they are the body. Now that's what the Corinthians really need to hear that right now. They weren't thinking of themselves as the body at all. They were thinking about, this is my meal, this is me eating it. And so it could be that part of this whole discerning the body is think about each other. When you take that Lord's Supper, are you just thinking about you? Or is it this focus on us, our salvation, our consideration and love for each other? Is that what I'm thinking about here? Or am I actually mistreating other people as they were doing here? Any thoughts on this? What I would say with this is there is big application on this examine ourselves and this guilty of the body and blood. But I do think that many times Christians have jumped to an extreme very quickly on this and felt like, okay, I had a thought in my mind that wasn't on Christ when I was eating that bread at the time, and therefore I'm guilty of the body and the blood. I don't think Paul's taking it to that extreme. He does want us to focus and all that. Yes, we need to be focused in our minds. But when he talks about being guilty of the body and the blood, he's talking about this perversion here, which is a lot more extreme. So this examining ourselves is, are we thinking about Christ? Are we thinking about each other? Are we doing this for the right reason?
The other side is mockery.
Yeah.
It's just the way you got to look at it. It's a mockery. Anything that's not done out of whole heart for God
Yeah.
is a mockery. It's just something that you're going through. It's just it's a waste of time. Those people were wasting their time. They're not focused on what Jesus did, what it represents. They weren't focused on anything from what I get.
Yeah, I think you're right. All right, we've got just a few more verses I want to talk about. So this verse 30 and 31 are challenging, and 32 talks about judgment. He says there's people there who are weak and ill, and some have died. And then he says, if you judge yourselves, you wouldn't be judged. And then he says that the Lord is judging you, and that he's disciplining you so that you will not be condemned along with the world. So, weak ill death. And he says that is God judging. It's God disciplining. So people have really puzzled over this. Is this spiritual weakness and illness and death, or is this physical weakness and illness and death? I think it actually makes the most sense for it to be physical. I think that would fit the most with it being God judging and with him disciplining. And since we don't have a lot of time to get into it, I'll just give you some passages to look at and think about. You can look at Hebrews chapter 12 and read that chapter about where, or at least the first half of the chapter, when he talks about God disciplining us. And it is in the context of physical challenges in our lives. And he talks about God being our Father and disciplining us as our Father. So I think it's very likely that that's what he's talking about here. Now, I think we got to be very careful with that. When we do think about this, could an illness, a physical illness, be God's discipline? We have to be very careful, because that doesn't mean that every physical illness is God's discipline. And we can very easily become Job's friends who were like, "Oh, Job, you're sick because God doesn't like you, because you did something wrong," and that of course was wrong. So, yeah.
You eat too much or you eat too little, both will make you sick. He pointed out that that's the error they're doing. You know, so like that could be one very easy cause and effect.
Yeah.
Some of them are starving. Some of them are getting drunk every week.
Yeah.
Well, that implies, I think, also that by partaking of it in a worthy manner, you will become stronger and healthier spiritually. It's supposed to make you a better person, bring you closer to the Lord, and the death could be people falling away from the Lord altogether. It could be a spiritual death as well. I don't think everybody dies because, but he chastens us. He rewards us at the end, but he chastens us now. So we have to look, how does he chasten us? A lot of people don't know how they do it. You have to figure it out when the Lord is chasing you. So it's not because he doesn't like you, because he loves you.
That is a very good point. Yes, absolutely. The disciplining is his love, and the Hebrews passage brings that out. Kenny?
I like what he said too about judging yourself first, because if you judge yourself, that comes with self-correction.
Yes.
So you can judge yourself and correct, and not wait for God to correct you.
That's a really good point. Yes. All right, let me finish this up real quick. Verse 33, "So then, my brothers, when you come together to eat, wait for one another. If anyone is hungry, let him eat at home, so that when you come together, it will not be for judgment. About the other things, I will give direction when I come." All right, so his final instruction here is wait for each other. And if you're hungry, eat at home.
Philip, from what I'm judging, it's not come together to eat till you get a feeling. It's come together to eat, partake in remembrance. It's not about your wanting to get full.
Yes.
It's about remembering what Jesus done and what the representation of those emblems are and what it should mean to us.
Yes. Great point.
Well, on that front, it's so hard to really draw a ton of application because, as we said, this is bizarre to pretty much every person who claims to be a Christian. I don't see anybody who sits down for a big old meal for communion these days. But we can extrapolate it out to be, what are we actually here for? Are we here to fulfill some desire of our own? Or is it in service of each other, in service of God?
Yes. I think the fact that he ends the chapter with this, each other, wait for one another, wait for each other, really shows us in our worship, really in all of the Christian life, but in our worship, it's got to be about each other. If it ever becomes about me and my little clique or my family or my little group here, I missed it. It's got to be about all of us. Keenan.
I think another recurring theme that has been throughout Corinthians that comes back here at the end is that God actively observes our worship and will appraise our worship and our works.
Great point. Yeah. All right. Thank you, everybody, for all the comments.